Ladies and gentlemen, and kids of all ages, we are here today with the iconic Stanley Wolczyk, who is a man for all seasons, and we are here to interview him concerning his recent induction in the museum, World War II Museum at New Orleans, which very few ever get that chance to have that induction. So, Stanley, how did you get the notice that you were supposed to become a enshrinee in the museum?
Apparently someone heard I had an interesting story, so I sent my story into the museum group, and I received a letter saying, "We accept your letter and your story. Would you come down to the museum?" And I agreed, so I went down.
And you went to a ceremony there, which was part of the enshrinement of your voice and your information concerning your part in World War II, which today anyone can go there and push a button and they will hear Stanley Wolczyk and his interview that was done for that enshrinement. So now let's go first of all, after you were notified that you were to be there, you flew, and what month was that? Do you remember what month you were down in New Orleans?
June.
June, okay. And the museum is a national World War II museum. And if you go there, and I'm sure, had you been there before?
Never. It's a new building. The whole building was donated by a fellow out of California. He donated $10 million. So it's a new building. It's a new affair for this country.
Okay, so the museum has been there, I think, since 2000. And this is a recent addition to that, which now you are part of for posterity. And you see this as the film that just went by here. You were at that ceremony. Do you know of any other, for example, there's the flag at the museum.
Oh, the whole activity was outstanding. They had a big band on the outside playing.
Okay, a band. And then
Isn't that exciting? And then when we entered the building, they had another band playing.
Okay.
And they fed everybody that came. I don't know who took care of the bill, but we sure ate very well.
Ate very well. Okay, that was a very interesting part and a very good part of the ceremony. Is that correct?
Being able to see me waving.
There he is. There he is in the
He introduced
crowd.
me.
And now, did you get to tour the new building also?
Oh yes, when we completed our socializing, everybody was free to visit the museum all the rest of the day.
Yeah. Now, the interview you gave, can you tell us anything that would be in that particular recording that is there for you in the museum?
I think the reason I was selected because it told a story of something I did on the island of Attu.
Which is in the Aleutians.
The only battle that was fought on American soil was fought on the island of Attu. Now, while I was doing my job, I came across a wounded American soldier that was half covered with snow. And I thought to myself, this is a terrible place to die. Loneliness will overcome this soldier. This is how peaceful this land is. What we should have had with some system that the parents could reach over and grasp his hand, and he would close his eyes for the last time with a smile on his face. But we don't have that technology yet. So I reached over and I grasped his hand and I squeezed it to assure him that he's not alone and that help is on the way. The medics were assigned to our unit that morning, and they were coming. He acknowledged my presence by squeezing my hand, and I looked at the soldier, half covered with snow. Tears were running down his cheek. He was crying, but they were not tears of pain. They were tears of joy. Somebody is here with me. I'm not alone. Now you might think that's not very important, but when a man is dying, it's the most important thing he's got.
Now, do you remember the name of that soldier?
No, he was an American soldier. After a bit, he squeezed my hand the second time, and he died.
Oh, he died there, okay.
His hand got lips. I placed this on his shoulder, and his smile began to fade because his heart's no longer burning. And he passed away completely. One good American soldier just died for his country. Every year, on Memorial Day, I see this soldier. He's still holding my hand. And the tears are still rolling. But they're always on my cheeks.
So that was the lasting impression.
Now, if I left him where he was lying in the snow, he will soon be covered. He will not be found. And the letter, the telegram going to his loved ones would read, "Your soldier boy is missing in action," an MIA. Mm-hmm. And when that happens, you'll never get over it. So to ensure that he will be found, I planted his rifle into the snow, into some solid ground, and I put his helmet on. It could be seen for a long distance. Well, my men came over, as agreed upon. My sergeant found the helmet. They found the soldier, and the medics are taking care of the details. This soldier is going home. Now, in this country, during World War II, we have over 3,000 MIAs. There was much crying in this state alone. So I sent this particular story to New Orleans,
to the museum.
Museum, and they accepted this. Very exciting, so that's the reason they called me.
So this really is an individual story of yours with an individual fatality of World War II.
Exactly.
And how you helped him at that time, did all you could to comfort him, and also to indicate where he actually was, because he was being covered by the snow with the rifle and with the helmet and so on and so forth. Now that is the story that they can hear if they go to the museum.
That's exactly.
Okay, So that's why it's an individual story about a hero of World War II, the one who comforted one who died in the war, and who today remembers that incident from that place on Attu. Now, Attu is in the Aleutian Islands. How did you get there? Meaning, how did you arrive at the Aleutian Islands?
Very exciting time. When we were ready to leave the country to go somewhere, we didn't even have a troop ship to deliver us.
Now, what month would this be of World War II, or what year would that be?
Well, we made the landing in May.
May of?
43.
43, okay.
I'm sorry.
May of 43.
During the war, when the war first began, the German U-boats were destroying anything that floated in the ocean, no matter whose nationality it was.
Yes.
So on the West Coast, we had many ships from many countries that were docked. They were not going to their homes because they would be sunk. So they selected a Danish ship, since we didn't have any. That's how poor we were at the beginning of the war.
You mean the United States did not have adequate ships?
We couldn't handle our commitment that we were going to do. They selected a Danish ship that was empty, naturally, a freighter. They put bunks in it, and that was our troop ship. They kept the crew. The Danish crew came with us. They operated the ship throughout the entire trip. So it was very exciting. I was very disappointed because I didn't think we were ready for any kind of a combat if we didn't have all the equipment. But I was surprised when the general invited all the officers in one of the rooms, and they had a model of the island, a large model, maybe 8 by 8 feet, and they had on it all the units that were supposed to land at certain places. So it was well planned. I was really impressed. So I felt much better because of that.
So you landed there in 43, you say?
Now we landed in 43. Somebody planned to land May 5th, but the surf was so high. Now you got to understand what's going on. We're going to leave the ship by way of cargo nets down to the Higgins boats is the name of the brand. Little boats, and when you have a tide bouncing up and down 3-4 feet, it's very difficult. Many people will get hurt, and sure enough, our supply sergeant got his foot caught between the ship and the boat, and he was out of the battle before he even started. So they canceled it from one day until the surf was 2 feet. We can handle that. So on the 11th, May 11th, we physically made the landing. Now, as we boarded our Higgins boats, a fog rolled in, beautiful big fog, covered the whole island. And I thought, boy, that's great. The enemy won't see us. They won't shoot at us, which was true. After we made the landing, it didn't work out so good because we all got lost.
You got lost?
Where we should have been, according to our plan, we were on the other side of the island. It took hours to gather all the troops to the proper places. The enemy was sitting in them, and they weren't planning to shoot. They were sitting in the mountains. They were there for a whole year, digging in waiting for us. So it wasn't a picnic.
Now that was the Japanese?
The Japanese were waiting for us. And as I said, they were digging in for a whole year because they landed a year prior to this particular landing.
And with that, how long were you stationed at that particular location? From May of 43 till...
Well, you mean on the island?
Yes, at 2.
I didn't fool around, staying around. I did my job. I only lasted 2 weeks before I was wounded.
That's right.
So I didn't stay long.
Okay, and
they carried me out.
You were wounded by being struck by a
Japanese bullet.
Bullet?
Actually, it happened immediately after that soldier that they found that we just related to.
So then you were taken to where?
I'm lying there all alone. There's no one around. My men were just coming. And I thought to myself, I'm dying, but I didn't understand exactly why. I finally noticed that I was wounded in the left shoulder, but I couldn't reach it physically. So I thought, well, boy, this is the way you die around here. So I laid my head back and just waited to get, actually, I waited to get coal all over. I remember dead people are coal all over. And my feet were cold because we didn't get the right gear, if you remember the story. So I thought to myself, now wait a minute. I remember the Army providing each soldier with a packet of pills. If you get injured, be sure you take your pills. The pills are attached to my cartridge belt, which is behind me. So just open up your cartridge belt and get your pills. Well, I tried doing that. It's a simple operation. You hold one side and you give it a half turn and it gets removed. You can get at your pills. Well, I was doing it, but nothing was being accomplished. Nothing was happening. Then I noticed my left arm wasn't doing anything. It was just hanging there. I'm talking to my arm to help us to get my pills so I can save us. It was funny, really. Seriously, it was funny. So I said, well, no pills, I might as well lower my head down and die, because this is the way you die here. Nobody's helping you. About that time, my men came. I explained to the sergeant what was happening, where I was injured. He did something. And then he had a couple of the fellas carry me back to where the medics were. And they put me on a sled. And they pushed me down to even further, down to where they had a bulldozer. The bulldozer was a big sled behind it. That's the only thing could move. Wheeled vehicles could not move in that type of climate. So they put me on the bulldozer sled to deliver me to the hospital, and that's how that all occurred.
Now, was the hospital on Attu, or were you taken somewhere else?
No, It was right on the island. They set up in a tent,
Yeah.
mind you.
Portable.
The engineers set up some heating units in the tent, and the doctors are working in a tent. When the wind is blowing stronger, blowing us all over. It was not pleasant for the doctors. But that's where they assemble us. And they would just pick people out. If they could not return you back to duty in a couple of days, they would send you. A ship arrived that was going to be our hospital ship, and that's where they placed you aboard the ship, send you back home.
So you were placed on a hospital ship?
On a hospital ship with 350 other wounded people.
Okay, now were you inducted into the Army, or did you enlist?
That's a long story. The Army had a system called CMTC, which stands for Citizen Military Training Camps. And that attracted my attention.
Okay.
So I joined this group. You spent all summer at an Army base, which was Fort Benjamin Harrison in Indiana. You spent 4 years. If you're still interested, you signed up for the reserves. And the 5th year was schoolwork. You'll spend a year studying map reading, for example, tactics and all that for another year. If you managed to complete that, you were rewarded with a second lieutenant.
Oh, so you went in as a second lieutenant?
I was a second lieutenant going in.
So that's the reason why you had men under you.
Yes.
In there. And that's interesting, because I don't think I've ever heard of that they had a civilian military training that you could go through. Today it would maybe be called ROTC, would it be?
Yes.
Something like that?
Yeah, that would be something.
So you had not gone to college yet when you...
Not yet. But during that period I was there, I seem to have won a scholarship to Findlay College from Ohio.
Yes.
I was there 1 semester, and then the Army, then the war came on, and that's as much as I went. I completed my schooling when I returned. I entered Baldwin Wallace and graduated in Baldwin Wallace.
You became an educator.
Then I began teaching. I seemed to be where I fitted the best.
Yeah. And where did you begin your teaching career?
In a farm community in Lorain County. I can't remember the name.
Okay. Well, that's been a few years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, at least one.
Yeah. Now, with that in mind, you also, I believe, were in Germany as an educator.
Now, after 2 years of teaching in this country, I met an old fraternity brother in Cleveland. Hey, how you doing, buddy?
What fraternity you were a member of?
Phi Tau.
Okay.
Radio, Phi Tau.
Phi Tau.
Phi Capital. So I said, what are you doing? He said, I'm teaching, which I knew he was. Where? In Germany. Germany. I said, how'd you get there? It sounds like it's very interesting to me. I said, he said, you're in luck. The hiring team is in Cleveland.
Oh.
I went over there and they hired me. I came home to my darling wife and I said, wife? Oh no. If I said wife to me, she'd belt me. I said, start selling at the house. Sell everything in the house. Sell the car. Sell the kids. But nobody wanted to buy that. we're going to Germany.
Well, how long had you been married by that time?
Well, I had 2 kids by then. So it's amazing for a wife. Then I had a house. I had to sell the house. We were all settled in for life, I suppose.
In Lorain County.
And here now we're going to leave. So we sold. Well, I had to leave before everything was sold because they required me to be someplace in Germany. So I left, and I didn't see her until Thanksgiving. So it was a long spell. I had to find quarters for her and all that other stuff.
Now, what kind of a school did you teach at in Germany? Was it?
It was an American school. I was teaching American kids, dependent kids that were
military personnel.
From the military people that were all in Germany for many years. The fact is, there's still, I think there's a couple of bases there today.
So this was after World War II that you went to Germany?
It was after the war, right.
Yeah. Okay. And then there, I believe you saw a celebrity or maybe a couple of celebrities.
Oh, it was very exciting. I met General Patton.
General Patton.
Oh, geez. This is how this occurred. You got to get the full story, otherwise it doesn't make sense, you know. The German General Rommel was in North Africa trying to control all the oil. Modern warfare needs oil. The British were also there trying to prevent them, but they were doing very poorly. So Churchill requested Roosevelt for some help. He said, send us a tank man with desert experience. Well, we had the tank man, Patton, but he had absolutely no experience in a desert. This is an entirely different type of fighting. So our War Department, you know, we had a War Department in those days. I always wondered why we never had a Peace Department. But anyway.
Now it's called Defense.
It's called Defense. And they sent him to our desert. You know, we have a desert. Does anybody know? Nobody. The Mojave Desert in Arizona. Oh. They sent Patton there for training. That's what it amounted to. Training for his equipment and the men. Now, they also sent the 7th Motorized Division. That was the fastest moving infantry unit. They had half tracks, so they also sent to the desert for maneuvers, they called it. Sure they do. It was for training the equipment. Now, when you have a contest of any type, you need somebody to supervise it. For example, in a football game, you have umpires. Well, when you're fighting, when you're playing games, playing war, you need an umpire. Otherwise, somebody will take advantage. So I raised my hand one day and I became an umpire. But it was a good experience because I learned an awful lot. We spent a week in school learning the value of the various units so you can make intelligent judgments when you have to. They gave me a truck, a driver, 2 flagmen, and attached me to a column of tanks going somewhere. We drove all evening. We drove all night. I kept asking the driver, can you see? I couldn't see a thing. Oh, yeah. Well, you're the driver. Morning came. There wasn't a single vehicle in front of us, as if they evaporated in the sky. Just sand. Behind me, I had 12 tanks.
Oh.
Boy, I thought to myself, somebody's going to get H for this. Probably me, because I'm standing there first. And it didn't take long. In the desert, you can see dust for miles, and it looked like it was coming towards us. And I was hoping it was a Jeep. And if it was a Jeep, that would indicate maybe a captain. And a captain or two not versed in chewing the guy down. But it was a command car. And I thought, well, it's a bird colonel. And I'll probably I'll really get it from him because he's experienced. But this particular vehicle had a special plate on the bumper. It had 2 stars on it. It was the bigwig himself, the general.
So Patton at that time was a 2-star.
It was a 2-star. And I said, somebody's going to get it for this. That's where he wore that big pistol on his front. He was well noted for that. I thought he'd probably just shoot me and get over it. As I learned later, those tanks were involved in a night attack, which never occurred because I had them.
Oh.
So I didn't know what to expect. And I was interviewed with my contact with the general, with some reporters later, and they didn't believe what he said because he was supposed to be in a rough, but he is. And this is what he said. Lieutenant, if you finish using my tanks, I'd like to have them back.
Okay.
I see, that's very polite, very nice. And remember, later when he slapped a soldier, and he's always cussing, and yet during every battle, he went on his knees to pray for a successful.
So he carried the pearl-handled revolvers, didn't he?
Oh, he was given this pistol from somebody, an old buddy of his, and he carried it in front. Pearl Harbor, about this long. I don't think he ever used it.
Well, is there a museum for him anywhere? I do not know.
I wouldn't be surprised in his hometown. He's buried in Europe, you know, so that part, he probably, whatever his hometown was, I'm sure they have a.
So you did not get chewed out by Patton?
Oh, never. Of course, as I said, the reporters did not believe it. They thought he would cuss me and do this and that, because I actually changed that particular battle, because I held out 12 tanks that he needed for a attack on something, which I didn't know anything about.
Then you also met Elvis when you were in Germany.
Now you must understand, the school building is within an army complex. Okay. Soldiers are running in front of your school all day long. Elvis this was during the Cold War. Cold War in our country didn't mean anything. People didn't even know what it was, and then it was ignored. But in Europe, it was serious. You couldn't travel from one country to another. And the countries within each other were all, you know, you were in some kind of a respected war or something coming up. So you had all this, in our case, he was on, let me see how that works so I don't get in. He would come to our base, Aschaffenburg, I think it was, and I could see him passing by in a Jeep. Now he himself would live in the next town where the quarters, his CO only lived in this. So I invited him. I called him, hey, come over. See my CO, and it's okay. And I knew the CO. He said, yeah, it's perfectly all right. So when the next time he came through, I told him what the CO said. So I had my kid. I had the 7th through the 9th grade that year. I was the principal there. Junior high, they call it here. So he came in, had the boys on one side, the girls on the other side. As soon as he came in, the girls went crazy. It took half hour to quiet him down. And he sang for about a half hour. And then I just wanted him to leave because he's working. But the girls wanted to keep him. So they devised a game. What do you call that game? When you have a rope and you scooch under it without touching your hands.
Isn't that the limbo?
Limbo! The girls came up with limbo. Well, the girls always win limbo against the boys because they play it every weekend, every gym. But now the boys have Elvis on their team. Ah. Now the girls are cheering for Elvis instead of for the girls. That thing was only this high and he scrooched under there. Amazing. If you wanted to see him, on Friday, he would be at the base hospital singing for the boys.
Is that right?
If you wanted to see him on Sunday, you had a bigger problem because he would be in one of 12 different chapels. The chaplains were very smart. They arranged for him to be in their chapel regularly. I mean, so that everybody had a chance because the chapel was always full of people if he was there.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Well, he was quite a celebrity when he was inducted into the...
Oh, they knew him. He was there for 2 years, 68 and 70.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, I asked Stanley, too, if he had his uniform from his days of World War II, and he now has a story about that.
Oh, gee. When you go over, you take all your equipment, everything you own as an officer, everything you own. I had a foot locker, a backpack, and whatnot. Because you never know where you're going to be. The Japanese came over. They bombed us a couple times. So our anti-aircraft people were blasting away, doing a good job. They ran short on ammunition, 50 caliber ammunition. And the ship I was on carried 50 caliber ammunition. So they decided to bring it in closer to the shore to make it convenient. It was too far out. As they brought it in, it hit a reef, cut a hole the size of this room. And I lost everything I owned. In fact, because all the officers lost everything. I arrived at the hospital. I had to buy my new clothing just to be running around. Of course, the hospital provided the hospital, but if you need anything else, you had to buy it. The government refunded our money, but it took 2 years before they came up with what you lost and how much did it cost 2 years ago. So it was fun.
Well, now, do you still attend military conventions? I know you did for years.
Well, we had the unit I was with is the 32nd Infantry, 7th Division. They had their 100th anniversary this past year. So I went down especially for it.
Down where?
Had it in Upper New York. What is that big base there? The 10th Mountain Division is quartered there. Because we have one battalion that's part of the 10th Mountain. So they greeted me. as a celebrity, I was given the privilege of cutting the cake with a sword.
Of the 100th anniversary.
On the 100th anniversary of the 32nd.
Uh-huh.
So it was very exciting.
Well, how many were there from World War II?
None.
You were the only one?
I was the only one. They're all part of the unit from the various other places, but there was none that made the landing with me.
Yes.
Not a of course, they made several landings. I mean, so most of them passed away.
Yes. Well, now, I believe you said at the ceremony in New Orleans there were 5.
There were 5 World War II
veterans. And you were the only one, though, to be enshrined insofar as your voice recording is now part of the posterity there.
Yeah, we don't know what the other...
And there he is, and there is a map of where he was in Attu, the Aleutians.
And there I am.
Some of the pictures concerning him. There he is in his uniform.
Oh, what a good-looking guy.
7th Infantry Division.
And this is the kind of terrain we had to fight. Not fun. These are the boats, Higgins boats.
Oh, there's a Higgins. Okay, I wonder what they were.
And here we are on the island. Well, they even mentioned where I found that soldier in the snow. And there he is.
And this is the story you were telling on the recording.
On the recording. Remember, I think that's that soldier that I covered, yes.
Yeah.
Not that one, but that other one I took care of. Now remember, that 7th Division just came off maneuvers in the desert, so we were not ready for anything like this.
Oh.
Look at that. That's no fun.
Snow on the ground.
Of course, there were no civilians there, no buildings of any kind, because no one, well, somebody lived there, but they hauled them away.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't exactly, the words don't come out the same like they should have. See, the problem, when you die alone. So they have someone near you. It's very important.
Well, I understand that, yes. I understand those. But nevertheless, Stanley has a rich history, not only as a veteran, but also as an educator. And if you want to go to New Orleans, they can push that button and hear his voice explaining the impact the soldier had on him who was dying and what he did for that soldier in that time of need. And secondly, remember this, Stanley will be 100 years old in December. So he will be a centenarian. So he is a man for all seasons. And if you ever want to talk to him, he spends much of his time at the Soprema Senior Center in Wadsworth here. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you. And Stanley, thank you for the interview and the interesting stories you have to tell. You probably have a lot more, but time has now elapsed.
I'm good.
Thank you.
Oh, I was going to say, I'm glad I was here to do it. Old enough to do it.
Well, you are one of the few.